we're really honored to welcome Ms.Michelle from San Francisco.
I entered the workforce probably 35 years ago, and it was a very different world then. It was clear the atmosphere, and no one used words like this 35 years ago. It didn't even exist. So this is a never-ending work that has to go on for DEI. Many politicians in the U.S. have this anti-woke kind of effort going on right now, where they feel like, these efforts have gone too far, and there's reverse discrimination happening, and so there's momentum now on that. So it ebbs and flows back and forth. And we know statistically, women are involved in over 50% of the decisions for buying a car. So it's really important that in the environment where you're designing and developing a car, you're bringing that customer perspective into all the decision making to develop that car. But creating a work environment where everybody feels included is the real challenge. D up here, diversity, this is the one like governments talk about. We want 30% females by this date. And D, to be honest, you can buy your way to D by just going and purposely recruiting and paying whatever you have to pay to get the diversity you need. The E, equity, that's creating the benefits and the work environment so that people have what they need to be successful. The I is the hardest part. Me sitting alone eating lunch, is not a very inclusive work environment. And then when you have employees who don't really feel like they belong or are welcome, they're not really bringing what you want, which is their best ideas and their innovation, because they're not necessarily comfortable to speak up. As I mentioned, inclusion happens every day in every interaction that employees are engaged in. And so leaders, which maybe you all be someday, I hope you are, you have to actively and consciously include. There's a term for a while was unconscious bias, which we all have. It's just the way we're made. You have to actively do conscious inclusion. When you get all the diversity coming together in this big soup of men and women and cultures and people with disabilities and different lifestyle choices, how to make that all work together. You, as a leader, have to really consciously make the effort to do it. And the people who are maybe more quiet because they're not comfortable speaking English or they're just by nature quiet, as leaders, you have to go proactively work to draw those people out. And don't just assume because they're quiet doesn't mean they don't have ideas, because they absolutely do. They just need to feel more comfortable, and that's on the company and the leaders to do that, to make it happen. And I worked in many different companies, and I've watched as the DEI initiative has built over the years, and it makes a difference in the workplace, no matter what your workplace is. So I applaud you all for coming out and having an interest in hearing a little bit about this, and I look forward to taking some of your questions. And feel free to ask me questions on anything you might be interested in, about cars, about the industry, about being a woman in this industry, a mother. I do have 2 grown children that I had them while working, so I'm happy to have more. Let's discuss more. So, thank you.
How do you integrate these people together, even if you have this resource group and so on? But I think that every segment has a different culture, and that occurs me as a first question if you talk about inclusion.
So those are the kind of things, like, you just, it goes beyond money, it goes beyond, how nice the building is, just those kind of things to really engage your employees, which is, really the key that you're looking for is happy and engaged employees to really bring you the best products. But it is hard, and we've actually been going out to the factories and having conversations with the women who work in the factories and trying to hear what their issues are. And and just one of our equity initiatives that we're putting in place actually right now is women who work on our factory lines, of which they are there. they don't, the bathrooms don't have sanitary products in them. They have this really short window, right, that they've got to run, and if, there's nothing there, if they need it, so we're putting it, so that's an example of equity, right, so that those women, don't have to run all the way to a locker room, which they probably don't have time to get to and get back. We're trying to make things easier for people. So there's no one solution. It's a ton of work, which is why we have a team led by Kobayashi-san here that's just working constantly to listen, talk, and then, we don't have unlimited money, right? We're still a business trying to make money. So you've got to figure out, strategically what you can do to make the most impact. And so a lot of work.
Great. Yes.
For example, I'm a student, but I also do an internship in some companies, and then there was a D&I session there, but it was voluntary, and then some people did not show up. Mm-hmm. And then I understand that we need to deliver the message to those who do not come, right? But then it's difficult for us to make them listen. So how do you see this situation, or if you have any ideas, how can we deliver a message to those who are closing their eyes? Thank you.
That's a great question, and yeah, there's not not one thing does it. It's not posters. It's not an e-learning that you force all employees to take, although we do that. But not one thing really, makes someone who has closed mind, right, change their mind. But over time, I am hoping that the more people who see this as the way to go become the majority, and they realize they are the minority, and they slowly start to realize that that this is critical. If companies and governments and institutions don't do this, right, they're really going to be in trouble, right? Because the workforce needs everybody, not just one, gender or one, culture or things like that. It needs everybody to be competitive in the 21st century. And if they aren't adapting, they're going to slowly die. Because it's just not sustainable to think that you're going to just be able to close your eyes, as you well said, and think that this is just some sort of passing thing that'll go away over time. I mean, it's here, right? It's not going to go backwards. And so we just have to keep trying. My goal, my dream, I don't think I'll live to see it, was that we don't have to have conversations like this anymore. That we don't have to have a diversity department, because it just naturally happens. But like I said, I came into the workforce almost 35 years ago. It's tremendously different, and I'm gonna, we're doing everything we can, right? And just seeing you here, being interested, we'll get there. It's just gonna take time, because there are those people with the wooden heads or whatever that just refuse to wake up to this situation, the reality.
So your company values DEI, but I wonder if it is only valid for in context of Japan, or I wonder if it is also valid for other countries, because I'm also thinking about my country, and I'm sure there might be some, I don't want to say restrictions, but maybe there are some things that they couldn't do it, even they want to, like LGBT groups, as an example. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious if you can also give us maybe information about how Nissan is dealing with that, and if they are also, like all these companies from other countries are coming together and discussing how they can resolve these issues together. So
one thing I would say is this is not a one solution that fits everywhere around the world, because you do have to respect, right? And I understand what you're saying, right? That in some areas you're going to have to, focus on maybe different things. So, and that's why we have the flexibility of supporting diversity and creating inclusive work environments. as best as what fits for that country or that region, and then giving them the resources and the support they need, but not forcing that you must have this group or that group or whatever groups. We let them kind of organically identify what are the resource groups, the employee resource groups that they want to create, and what are the activities they want to create in order to achieve the goal. Because the goal's the same. The goal's how you get there. There's a million ways to get there, but that goal is the same. And yes, we do come together globally. We had in June, all of the people from around the world in Nissan came to Yokohama, and we spent 2 days together. I wish we'd brought some pictures, because we had a lot of fun. And our CEO showed up to support us, and we had external speakers come, and they were all really, I think, people who are outside of Japan, especially in the U.S., think, why doesn't Japan just catch up, And then they came here and listened to some of the issues, and it was really eye-opening, as it was eye-opening for us to listen to some of the issues they were dealing with in the United States, especially now with this reverse discrimination movement that's happening in the United States. And then the issues in, Thailand were different, and in Brazil and Mexico. So we realize we have a lot in common, but we also have to adjust to whatever the unique differences are happening in those. So it makes it more interesting, but also more challenging. Yeah. But yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all answer here.
I wanted to ask about how these strategies are proposed, like programs for inclusion, and how these are implemented in companies such as Nissan. Because I've done internships in small companies, and it definitely, I can see that there's quite of a difference. So I wanted to see the perspective of a large company such as Nissan.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have DEI Council. So we have a global one, and the CEO is the chair of that council. We support him, but he's the chair, and we have all of his executive team sit on that council. We also have regional councils, and those councils are really the way that you bring the ideas forward to that group to get the support. So we are, that was how our employee resource groups got started. Kobayashi-san brought them forward with the concept. She explained how they worked. She said, we need budget, we need, and we need you to sponsor them. So we got executives, top level executives, to be the sponsors of this group. That doesn't mean they do the work. The people, the employees, do the work, but that sponsor's there to help them if they hit any roadblocks and to attend their events. So a council is really the way to get it done. And you've got to have that right tone at the top. I mean, your top leader has to be sending the message that this is important. Some other things we're doing, just to also give you some ideas, we just did our first round of reverse mentoring. Have you ever heard of this concept? Some of you have heard of it. So we had, in one of our council meetings, Kobayashi-san asked for 5 executives to volunteer, raise their hand. And they were nervous. We were nervous. No one would volunteer to be reverse mentored. So that means, these are the top people in the company. And we're like, okay, you're going to get mentored. And we're going to pick 2 20-somethings to come and mentor you on a topic. And we had 5 people volunteer. And then you actually advertised, right, on our intranet for volunteers to be mentors to these executives. And you had, 70, 80 applications, and said, okay, you're going to go, so like you two are going to go in a room with the executive vice president of strategy, and you're going to talk about a subject. We had to make it okay. We're like, you're not allowed to ask for a promotion or a raise or anything like that. So what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about AI, you want to talk about the long-term strategy of the company. We guided them with topics, but then they got together and they had 3 30-minute sessions, and we're just getting the feedback right now, and they love it because the leaders are getting to talk to people they don't normally get to talk to, right? and they're hearing the perspective of what it's like to be 27, 28 years old working at this company, how they're perceived, what are the issues they're dealing with, and then the executives, they're fascinated that they get to go up to the rooms and where these executives sit and see them, and then just hear what those people have to say, and it just becomes this like human connection, right? And it's most eye-opening for the executives, right? Because they get to hear, like, our head of marketing and sales, she was describing to me that, these people were talking about, well, when I have an idea, it has to go up to this person and that person and that person and that person, up the chain of command, and everybody changes it a little bit. So by the time it gets approved, it looks nothing like what I proposed at the beginning, because everybody changed it. And this, number 3 top 5 people in the company is like, I didn't realize how bad it was. And I was like, good, let's change it. So that's DEI, right? Like at work. And it's not just about, meeting quotas. It's like bringing those voices so that you can change the company to really make it more effective and work for everybody. So we're going to be reporting our results the end of this month, or end of November, right? And we're going to ask for the next wave of volunteers to come through. But back to your point of how do you get it going? You need to kind of have a council, and then you also need to have a few people, and generally they're HR, that actually go out and benchmark and then bring ideas forward to that committee saying, let's try this, let's try that. And some of these things I showed you, these are really common amongst many companies.
Maybe I just want to exchange the topics from a maybe enterprise to a micro level. I just wonder, or I just curious about what's your viewpoint about the woman's glass ceiling problem or glass ceiling phenomenon, because I'm lack of some enterprises internship experiences, so I'm really curious about what's the real phenomenon or what's the real problem in the business level of business world.
We have on Nissan's board now. There are 12. Yeah, it's 12. 3 are women. 3 are women. And then at our corporate officer level, there are 5 of us who are corporate officers. And this is in Japan, right? So these figures are good for Japan. Nissan's figures for females are the best of the automotive companies in Japan. Now, when you compare them to like an American company, it doesn't look that way. But back to your question about the glass ceiling. I don't feel like I've ever felt it. I have always felt that I've had great opportunities. I think that's probably because I've taken care in some of the company I work for. And I've actually felt like I've been kind of pulled up at times versus hitting a ceiling and bumping my head. So I think it depends on the company as to whether that glass ceiling is there. And there are people, right? Okay, if there's a job, right, and there's 100 things, or let's say 10 things you got to do for that job, and a man might have a few, but he'll be like, I can do it, and I don't need to have all 10, and the woman will be like, no, I don't have 2 of the 10, so that's where you need mentoring and sponsorship to encourage, and that's also the leader's responsibilities. I mean, I can remember distinctly in my career sitting in meetings and feeling like it wasn't, I was too low a level, I was too young to speak, and I can remember distinctly saying, what do you think, and someone does that, and you know how I do that to people, right, all the time, and I'll ask, the juniorest person in the room, what do they think? When someone does that, then the confidence starts to build and everything. And so I just think it takes enough of us with that mindset and, of trying to help and make that comfortable work environment that it's the ceiling it isn't really there. But it does depend on the company, and that's why I kept kind of mentioning you. If this is important to you, don't just look at the money. Don't just, look at the prestige or of whatever firm or institution you might work for. If this is important, ask these questions and, make sure the environment is there and it's going to be right for you and right for your colleagues too.
Thank you for answering. And maybe based on this, I want to ask something about how to overcome your individual pressure, like how to feed your child and balance the family and the career or something like that.
Not well. I mean, you make lots of mistakes, but it's hard to do everything well. It's hard to do your job well and be a good spouse and be a great mom and all that. So I had to pick, and I had to when my children were little, right, and the school's always asking parents the volunteer, can you come on this? Can you send in cookies? Can you do this? I mean, I just didn't do it. I just didn't do it.
Okay.
I had to send them money. I was like, I'll send you money. So, but I can't, I did a few things. It wasn't that bad. But, I wasn't there like the other moms. And then when I'd go to school events and all the moms were part of a club because they hung out all together, I was isolated there. I was like, who is this strange lady that never shows up for anything? But I have a son. He's 25 now almost. It doesn't even dawn on him that women can't be in powerful positions and make the money and, because he had me as his example. So if anything, I've made that influence on one man out there that, women are just as capable as men. And then my daughter, she's going through a medical program now too. So, and she's, also, I think benefited from watching a mom who, but, my mother would come to my house and tell me, I wasn't clean enough and my garden was a mess. And then I'd say, Mom, it's true. I go, Mom, I work.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big job, so I'm not so worried about the weeds in my garden. So you just have to let that go. And it's hard. I mean, at first, my husband, my mom said this to me, and but then I just let it go over time.
Definitely. We all believe that maybe you have done your best, I think.
I think we didn't talk about automobiles today. I thought
I'm happy to talk about automobiles.
So maybe I want to share one anecdote again about myself, myself in the car, which is a very strange relationship because I'm not a good driver. I destroyed almost 2 cars because our garage was too small. That's my argument, but my husband always say we have a double garage, and that was not enough for me, so something was wrong with my car or myself. Anyway, I moved to Germany in the late 90s, and when my son was 3 years old and my daughter was only 1, so she was born in Germany. And in the city where I lived, there was no subway system like in Tokyo, so my main way of getting around was by bicycle. And I don't know how many of you experienced the weather in Germany, but the rainy weather there often prevented us from going around with a bicycle, especially with 2 small kids. So eventually I decided to go to driving school and to get the driver's license. And my first car was not Nissan, it was a red Volkswagen Golf, an old one. But with that car, my life completely changed. I could go to puppet theaters, zoos, swimming pools, and more. And I made new friends, and we visited each other from time to time. And I even attended college seminars and explored university libraries in other cities with my two small kids. So that was a big experience, and no longer did I have to rely on my neighbors or my husband for shopping trips and so on. So together with my young children, I began to explore new aspects of society with that car. So alongside the development of the internet, I was able to overcome the barriers as a woman, and this having a car significantly impacted my life as a woman. So in that sense, I'm very grateful for automobile companies who sell the cars. Yes, and in addition to that, Ms. Brown's talk today also reminded me how important to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm glad that the automobile company has an emphasis on that values like we do. So these principles foster creativity and also maybe wisdom and innovation and elements that are indispensable to the University of Tokyo too. So I feel very close, and we find many similarities in organizing and also managing one organization. Thank you so much again, Ms. Baron, for sharing with us such wisdom, knowledge, and also knacks and tricks of how you get to the top. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.